Hello everyone and welcome back to AP Bio with AP Playground. Today we're finishing up Unit 7 with topic 7.12, Origins of Life on Earth. So we'll be looking at the scientific evidence that supports models of the origin of life on Earth, as well as the RNA world hypothesis. And our suggested skill for this topic are questions and methods. 3B, state the null hypothesis or predict the results of an experiment. Alright, so the origins of life. Earth formed approximately 4.6 billion years ago, although the environment was too hostile for life until about 3.5 billion years ago. And this was when the appearance of water emerged, and so prokaryotes were now able to sustain life. And we have this evidence using geological data by dating the fossil record, using radiometric data, which uses the rate of decay of radioactive isotopes in order to determine the age of rocks. And so oxygen accumulation 2.7 billion years ago through photosynthesis, because some of these prokaryotes were in fact photosynthetic, allowed for cellular respiration to begin occurring, which then allowed for greater energy to be used, and eukaryotes appeared 2.1 billion years ago. So 2.1 billion years ago we started with ancestral eukaryotes, and that eventually evolved to us present day. So now let's look at some different models for the origins of life. Alright, some models for the origins of life. First up, we have the Oparin-Haldane hypothesis, which was the idea that inorganic compounds, so compounds that don't contain carbon, energized by lightning or UV radiation as an energy source, can develop organic compounds. And this is how life on Earth showed up, because of course life on Earth is carbon-based. And the Urey-Miller experiment showed that yes, macromolecules can be formed from inorganic compounds, but they didn't actually have the same atmospheric conditions that Oparin and Haldane predicted in their hypothesis. But it's really cool because in fact, it's true that macromolecules can be formed from inorganic compounds. So without carbon, macromolecules can be formed. And this is sort of a version of the experiment where we have a heat source, and we're going to have energy involved. And we see inorganic compounds here that don't contain carbon, and they can as a result create macromolecules. And so we're looking at this Chomp rule, which states that there are certain essential elements that each macromolecule is made up of. And so to get a carbohydrate, you need to have CHO, you need to have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Same thing for a lipid. To get a protein, you need to have CHON, so you also need to add nitrogen in the mix. And lastly, for a nucleic acid, you need to have all of these. You also need to have phosphorus. And so atmosphere had a lot of energy, but it didn't have much oxygen, which created a reducing environment that boosted this creation of organic from inorganic compounds. Additionally, meteorites may have transported organic compounds to the planet, and that's how they arose. And so again, this is the spontaneous creation of polymers from monomers, spontaneous organic compounds coming from inorganic compounds. And so from inorganic molecules, we went to organic molecules, and then we went to organic polymers. And from there, we went to protocells, which were basically just membranes. So they had a differing internal and external environment. And from protocells, which had this membrane and they could separate the environments, from there we can emerge to self-replication with these protocells dividing. And over time, we developed prokaryotes, and then from there we got to eukaryotes, and now we have complex life that exists now. But it all started from inorganic molecules. And lastly, we have the RNA world hypothesis, which states that RNA could have been the earliest genetic material, not DNA. Because RNA is what catalyzes protein synthesis, and genetic continuity is ensured by RNA replication, which is more important than DNA replication. So when cells initially first divided, genetic material was carried by RNA rather than DNA, and we had RNA catalysts, ribozymes, which allowed for RNA to replicate and for cells to divide and have RNA as their main genetic information, and no protein enzymes were used. So if we look at this image here, we see RNA forming from inorganic sources like we described. Then it's going to self-replicate using more RNA using ribozymes, and then it's going to catalyze protein synthesis and that's going to allow for creation. And so from here, we have RNA coding for both DNA and proteins, and eventually DNA is going to become the most important genetic material as we see today. But the RNA world hypothesis states that RNA was the earliest one. It is what allowed for the beginnings of gene transfer and replication. So there you have it. Life arose from inorganic molecules to form organic molecules, and this has eventually resulted in protocells, which are going to be separating internal and external environments, and eventually became prokaryotes and eukaryotes and us. And we also talked about the RNA world hypothesis, which states that RNA was the earliest genetic material, and it was actually the base for origins of life. Well, that was it for Unit 7, and I'll see you in Unit 8, Ecology.